Today on our tour of Great American Gardens, we visit an estate in New York City where a special tree forms a curtain with its branches. An island off the coast of California with beautiful but sometimes dangerous plants. And later, a sunken garden in Portland, Oregon, filled with 10,000 roses. It's all coming up on our tour of Great American Gardens. Hello, I'm Tricia Springer. Welcome to Great American Gardens. Wave Hill is a country estate overlooking the Hudson River and cliffs of the Palisades. This slice of nature in the midst of the Bronx, one of the boroughs of New York City, is an unexpected nature getaway. Just 12 miles from Midtown Manhattan, Wave Hill seems in the middle of nowhere. While visitors can catch occasional glimpses of New York City, it's easy to get lost in the overwhelming beauty of this stunning garden along the Hudson River.
I think the experience that people find when they come to Wave Hill is a sanctuary, an oasis that is beautiful. The natural setting is extraordinary.
That natural setting includes a view across the river to cliffs called the Palisades. It's a scene visitors are encouraged to enjoy by sitting in one of the inviting wooden chairs scattered across the great lawn. In addition to a magnificent vista, Wave Hill offers visitors a chance to see unusual plants and plants used in unusual ways. A tree that forms a curtain with its branches. A garden filled with a variety of grasses. And new ways to use a flower that often takes a back seat. This 28-acre public garden doesn't like to be too predictable. As a result, the 110,000 people who visit here each year are treated to a variety of surprises at the Wave Hill Estate. Initially built as a country home in 1843, Wave Hill passed through a variety of wealthy and sometimes famous owners. President Theodore Roosevelt spent 2 summers here as a boy when his parents rented Wave Hill in 1870 and 71. Mark Twain also leased the estate in the early 1900s and wrote articles in a treehouse retreat he built on the front lawn. In 1902, the estate was purchased by businessman George Perkins, who helped preserve the Palisades that Wave Hill overlooks. His family later donated Wave Hill to the city of New York, and today this public garden is open to everyone. One of the most beautiful features of the garden is the upper pergola, an enchanting tunnel of vines. In an unorthodox move, gardeners have taken the dangling branches of the weeping blue Atlas cedar and created an intriguing blue drapery.
Under the pergola there's shade and quiet, and looking through the branches of the weeping blue Atlas cedar, there's an effect like frost on a window, almost an etched effect with the light coming through behind. On the opposite side, in full sun, the powder blue of the needles is what you see most, creating this wonderful curtain of powder blue.
It's an unusual effect that's taken gardeners 35 years of patience to perfect. At Wave Hill, gardeners go to great lengths to show off unique plants. For example, this giant Abyssinian banana tree from Ethiopia would die if left outside during the winter. So, when summer ends, workers cut off its giant leaves, dig up the roots, and store it in a cardboard box. When summer returns, the banana tree is returned to its outdoor home in what's called the monocot garden.
Monocots are plants that have one seed leaf. Seems obscure, but they include our grasses, which are most of our grains. They include bananas, taro, a collection that sounds monotonous, but is in fact full of color and texture.
In the monocot garden, people can admire the feathery grace of fountain grass while listening to the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. Visitors who long for a traditional flower garden need only follow their noses. The sweet smell of thousands of annuals and perennials fills the air in the flower garden. Even here, the bounds of convention are pushed. Amaranths are so showy that many gardeners use them only as a backdrop. But in this flower garden, they appear throughout, popping up like giant exclamation points. This is just another surprise among many at Wave Hill, for this is a garden that prides itself on originality. People see the branches of the weeping blue Atlas cedar transformed into a curtain, and huge tropical plants like the Abyssinian banana tree thriving outdoors. Wave Hill is a showplace for creativity with an unforgettable view. When Great American Gardens comes back, we visit Catalina Island to see plants that grow nowhere else in the wild. When we return. Welcome back to Great American Gardens. Nearly 20 miles off the coast of Long Beach, California, there's a tiny island called Catalina. A unique garden is hidden away in the cliff sides of this island, and it's home to some of the rarest plant species on Earth. In the 1800s, pirates sought refuge from the law in these rocky coves here on Catalina Island. Today, in a canyon on this island of 76 square miles, Wrigley Memorial and Botanical Garden safeguards a botanical treasure worthy of a smuggler's bounty. A prickly plant that's dangerous both inside and out. And a rare and deadly tomato plant. Much of the garden's 38 acres are devoted to rare plants, 8 plant species that grow naturally on Catalina Island, but nowhere else in the world. The garden also features cactus and succulents, and plants native to the California islands. Wrigley Memorial and Botanical Garden was started in 1935 by Ada Wrigley, the wife of William Wrigley. She wanted to honor her husband's name.
You probably are familiar with Wrigley's chewing gum. And Mr. Wrigley, who made his fortune in chewing gum and at the beginning of the century purchased the island and began to transform the island into a kind of a world-class resort.
William Wrigley purchased this entire island in 1919. Although he brought modern features such as electricity to this remote island and built the town's landmark rotunda, he also preserved the island's natural history.
86% of the island will never be developed, and it will be left in its natural state.
Among the plants that grow naturally here are fragrant sage and Catalina currant, and a succulent that grows only here called Catalina Live Forever. Other native plants include St. Catherine's lace, and the rarely seen and endangered wild tomato plant. This somewhat barren vine is all that's left of this wild tomato plant. That's because deer on the island can't resist the tender shoots of the shrub. This plant, though it looks harmless, bears killer tomatoes, deadly to humans and animals, except to the deer on this island. They've developed an immunity to the plant's poisonous effects. Growing near the wild tomato is another Catalina native, the Catalina ironwood. The textured bark of this tree is as attractive in its own right as its subtle flowers, but it's the tree's history that makes it remarkable.
What's really important specifically about the Catalina Island ironwood is that it's a relict endemic. This means that it used to grow in a much wider distribution in past history, and now it's focused down to growing only on Catalina Island.
Studies of 6-million-year-old fossils show that the Catalina ironwood existed throughout what is now the western United States. Scientists suspect that changes in climate, specifically drier weather, contributed to the elimination of the Catalina ironwood on the mainland. But the garden goes beyond the boundaries of the island. It features plants, a few of which are a little dangerous, from the far reaches of the globe.
This is an interesting plant that looks like a cactus. It's actually not. This is a euphorbia. This is Euphorbia ceruleans, or spurge. This evolved in Africa with a very poisonous latex substance that people for many years in Africa used on the tips of arrows for killing game, as it's quite a deadly poison and fast acting.
But not all attractions on this island are so foreboding. Some are memorable for more sentimental reasons. A visit to the Wrigley Memorial and Botanical Garden would not be complete without a visit to the memorial. This impressive building is a monument to William Wrigley. In keeping with his commitment to native Catalina species, it's constructed from materials found or manufactured on the island. Visitors who climb to the top of the memorial are treated to an awe-inspiring view of the garden and Avalon Bay beyond. The view, like the Wrigley Memorial and Botanical Garden, leaves a lasting impression. For the garden gives visitors a chance to see plants they will see nowhere else. It's a showcase for plants that are both lethal and lovely. A trip to the Wrigley Memorial and Botanical Garden is a treasure trove of unforgettable plants. When our tour continues, this Portland, Oregon garden is 8 feet below ground level, but its roses rise to great heights. Next on Great American Gardens. Welcome back. I'm Tricia Springer. With its temperate climate, Portland, Oregon is the perfect place to grow roses. So perfect that the city slogan is the City of Roses. It's a reputation that started in 1905 when citizens of Portland planted 20 miles of roses along city streets for the Lewis and Clark Exposition. A few years later, the City Parks Department got into the act and created the Peninsula Park Rose Garden, a European-style garden that showed off the elegance and vibrant colors of one of America's favorite flowers. Lying in the heart of Portland's Piedmont neighborhood, the Peninsula Park Rose Garden is a community garden where children play and love blossoms amid the perfume of rose petals. Surrounded by homes and streets, this sunken garden is the oldest public rose garden in the city.
When you come here, you look over the bank, you see nearly 10,000 roses in a display. The way it's designed, you have this wonderful boxwood hedges around these beds of roses, plus the central fountain and the brick walkways and the gazebo that's behind the garden. All of it make a wonderful setting for a rose garden.
With its boxwood hedges and its compulsion for symmetrical design, this classic European-style garden may look highly structured, but it's not fussy. Here, toddlers are at home splashing in an elegant fountain. Roses are grouped by color to pack a visual punch. And vigorous Sally Holmes roses carry delicate white blooms 10 feet into the air. The Peninsula Park Rose Garden features 35 different types of roses within its 2 acres. It's owned by the City of Portland and is free for anyone who wishes to stop and smell the roses.
We have large plantings of roses. These beds are 75 to 25 feet across, so you have this high impact of seeing large beds, nearly 10,000 roses.
Peninsula Park Rose Garden first blossomed in 1913. Hoping to further its reputation as the City of Roses, Portland decided to build a rose garden unlike any other in the country. Instead of building a rose garden at eye level, they decided to sink the garden 10 feet below ground level, something no other rose garden had done at the time. This way, visitors would get the perspective of seeing thousands of roses at once.
When this garden was developed, it was after the Lewis and Clark exhibit that came to town, and so there was a great emphasis on planting roses and displaying roses in the city, and so they had actually lined city blocks with roses.
Because Portland's climate is temperate, it's the perfect place to showcase roses. Most roses don't bloom well in extreme conditions. They die when it gets too cold and stop producing flowers when it gets too hot. Here, roses with fun names like Razzle Dazzle and Voodoo show off their brilliant shades, while blossoms named Love and Honor are more symbolic of romance. All the roses displayed here are considered modern roses.
Generally, we think of roses that were developed before 1867 as being old garden roses, and then those after being modern roses, but that's an abstract date. Really what we're looking at is your old garden roses bloom only once.
But roses developed after 1867 bloom throughout the summer and sometimes into the fall as well. And they often have remarkable colors. This rose is named Intrigue. It's a stunning purple, and its scent is unlike any other rose.
It smells a little bit like vanilla and like blackberries.
Throughout Portland's Peninsula Park Rose Garden, visitors enjoy a distinct arrangement of color. Rather than sprinkling dozens of different shades of roses across the garden, here roses are grouped by color. Visitors can see clear, bold blocks of red, yellow, pink, and white. The focal point of this symmetrical display is a fountain, which sprays water 20 feet into the air. Surrounding the entire garden are brick walls and concrete balustrades. They're adorned by towering white roses called Sally Holmes.
I'm standing beside Sally Holmes, the climber, and I'm about 6 feet high, and the climber you can see is up 8 to 10 feet above me. So it's a wonderful, vigorous climber that does really well here in Portland. It was a gold medal winner.
Perched above the Peninsula Park Rose Garden is the bandstand. It offers visitors a terrific view. But no matter what your vantage point, this neighborhood garden is an expansive look at the enormous variety of roses. They can be romantic as the love rose or unforgettable as Intrigue. Despite diverse names and personalities, all are at home in this sunken garden, in the City of Roses. Next, we revisit the Wrigley Memorial and Botanical Gardens to see an extremely rare tree. Only 8 of them remain on Catalina Island, when Great American Gardens returns. Gardens. As we've seen earlier, Catalina Island is a place of stunning natural beauty. Several rare plants thrive there, but there's one more unusual plant that makes Catalina home, the Catalina Island mahogany.
There are only 6 plants growing naturally on one canyon on the backside of Catalina Island and no place else in the world.
Despite its rarity, it tries, with little luck, to further the species.
The rare Catalina mahogany has a a seed that has a long, beautiful, silvery feather attached to each seed, and when it's mature and a little wind comes along, it floats that seed long distances, and so it can germinate in different sorts of soils and habitats.
Even though the seeds might find fertile ground, the resulting tree is usually a hybrid of the Catalina Island mahogany and the more common island mahogany that have cross-pollinated. Because there are only 8 Catalina Island mahogany trees on the entire island, and because they are spread out, it's unlikely that the tree will be pollinated by one of its own kind. Chances are much greater that it will be pollinated by a more prevalent mahogany tree. Thanks for joining us on our tour of Great American Gardens. And remember, public gardens are your gardens.